She never cries in front of people. She fixes problems before anyone notices them. She holds everyone together. And she goes home, completely alone. Here's what nobody tells you. The strongest woman in the room is statistically the most likely to feel deeply, profoundly lonely. And science finally knows why. If you've ever felt like your strength is somehow keeping people away, this video is going to explain something about yourself that no one ever has. If you want to truly understand human behavior and psychological traits, you're in the right place. I post videos every week. Subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with your friends so they can learn too. Let's start with something that sounds impossible. A 2021 study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who demonstrate high emotional resilience, the ability to regulate their emotions, stay calm under pressure, and support others, are significantly less likely to receive emotional support themselves. Why? Because they don't look like they need it. There's a psychological phenomenon called the competence-warmth paradox. When someone appears highly capable, other people unconsciously assume they don't need help. They admire from a distance, they rely, but they don't reach in. Think about that for a moment. The stronger you appear, the more invisible your pain becomes. And for emotionally strong women specifically, this plays out in an almost cruel loop. They were likely taught by family, by culture, by survival, that showing need is weakness, that vulnerability is dangerous, that you hold the fort and everyone else gets to fall apart. So they learned to compress, to contain, to keep going, and the world rewarded them for it, and punished them in a way no one ever warned them about. Here's where biology gets involved, and it's fascinating. Inside your brain, there's a structure called the amygdala, your emotional alarm system. When you feel something overwhelming, fear, grief, loneliness, the amygdala fires. In most people, that signal travels upward to the prefrontal cortex, and the person eventually expresses that emotion. They cry, they talk, they reach out. But in people who have spent years practicing emotional suppression, something different happens. A 2020 neuroimaging study from Stanford University found that chronic emotional suppressors show increased amygdala activity over time, not decreased, meaning suppressing emotions doesn't reduce them, it amplifies them internally while making them invisible externally. The pain is still there, louder actually, but no one can see it. And here's the cruel biological twist. Cortisol, the stress hormone, builds up during suppression. Chronically elevated cortisol has been linked to social withdrawal, difficulty trusting others, and a reduced ability to feel genuine connection, even when it's right in front of you. In other words, the very biological consequence of being strong for too long is that your nervous system starts protecting you from the connection you're starving for. Your body learned connection leads to expectation. Expectation leads to disappointment. Disappointment is dangerous, so it builds a wall, not out of arrogance, out of self-preservation. Now let's talk about why emotionally strong women struggle to maintain deep relationships, and this part is going to be uncomfortable for some of you. Psychologist Dr. Harriet Lerner, in her landmark research on emotional dynamics, identified a pattern she called the overfunctioner.
An overfunctioner is someone who instinctively steps in, takes over, manages, fixes, and holds space for others. They seem to thrive in chaos. They seem to not need what others need. And they tend to attract, unconsciously, underfunctioners. People who lean in, who need managing, who take more than they give. It's not a character flaw on either side. It's an unconscious system. Two people who fit together like a lock and key until the strong one looks around and realizes she has been giving for years and no one has ever asked her, "Are you okay?" and actually waited for the real answer. There's also something called attachment theory, developed by John Bowley and later expanded by Dr. Sue Johnson. Many emotionally strong women develop what's called an avoidant attachment style. not because they don't want connection, but because early experiences taught them that needing others is unreliable or unsafe. So they learn to be self-sufficient, admirably, impressively self-sufficient. But self-sufficiency taken to its extreme is just loneliness with good posture. Let's talk about what loneliness actually does to a person, because most people think it's just an emotion. Science says it's a physiological state. Dr. John Cacioppo at the University of Chicago, the world's leading loneliness researcher before his passing in 2018, spent decades proving that loneliness is as physically damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It raises blood pressure, it disrupts sleep architecture, it elevates inflammatory markers in the blood. It literally ages your cells faster through a process called telomere shortening. But here's what his research revealed specifically about high-functioning lonely people, people who appear fine from the outside. They show a neurological pattern called hypervigilance to social threat. Their brains are constantly, unconsciously scanning for signs of rejection, for signs that they are too much or not enough, or that the connection they're feeling is about to disappear. And this hypervigilance, this background static of social anxiety, makes genuine intimacy feel exhausting and risky at the same time. So what do? They keep people at the perfect distance, close enough to not feel completely alone, far enough to not get hurt. And they call that independence. And sometimes they even believe it. We can't have this conversation without talking about conditioning. For centuries, women have been praised for endurance, for sacrifice, for selfless strength. The mother who never complains, the daughter who takes care of everything, the woman who holds the family together while quietly falling apart. These aren't just cultural myths, they are internalized scripts that run in the background of a woman's psychology from childhood. A 2019 study from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child found that girls as young as 6 years old begin suppressing emotional expression more than boys, not because of biology, but because of reinforcement. They were praised for being so mature and so strong. They were comforted less. They were expected to recover faster. By the time she is an adult, a strong woman may have spent 2 decades being rewarded for her emotional suppression by parents, teachers, partners, employers. The world built her to be unbreakable, and then wonders why she feels alone. And perhaps the most painful part? She often judges herself for feeling lonely, as if strength and loneliness shouldn't coexist, as if the loneliness is proof of some hidden weakness. It isn't. It is proof that she is human. So what do you do with all of this? The answer isn't just be more vulnerable. If you've been living this pattern for years, being told to open up more is like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk it off. The actual path, backed by research, involves something more precise. Step 1, recognizing the performance.
Dr. Brené Brown's research on vulnerability found that the first shift happens when someone recognizes that their strength has partly become a performance, a protective identity that says, "I am fine," before anyone can ask. Not all of your strength is performance, but some of it is armor, and you need to know the difference. Step 2, asymmetric vulnerability. You don't have to collapse to connect. Research shows that small, selective disclosures, telling one trusted person one real thing, begins to rewire the nervous system's association between vulnerability and danger. Not a flood, a crack in the wall, that's all it takes to start. Step 3, choosing people who can hold weight. One of the most important decisions an emotionally strong woman can make is to stop accepting relationships where she is always the giver. Not out of selfishness, out of sustainability. Genuine connection requires 2 people who can carry each other. If you are always the one carrying, that is not a relationship. That is a rescue mission with no rescue for you. Step 4, redefining strength. The most recent psychological research, including work from the field of post-traumatic growth, shows that the strongest people are not those who feel the least, they are those who feel fully and keep going anyway. Allowing yourself to be known, truly known, is not weakness. It is, in fact, the bravest thing a strong woman can do. There is a version of strength that isolates, that keeps score without meaning to, that stands tall alone because it learned that standing together is too risky. And there is another kind of strength, rarer, harder, more beautiful, that says, I am strong enough to need you. If this video reached something in you, something you haven't talked about, I want you to know the loneliness you feel is not a flaw in your character. It is the echo of a life lived carrying more than your share, and you are allowed to put some of it down. If this resonated, share it with a woman who needs to hear it, not because she looks like she's struggling, but because she looks like she's fine. Those are usually the same person.